The farm sat at the edge of surveyed space where human territory blurred into the uncharted void. Lewis had chosen this isolation deliberately, seeking refuge from a galaxy that had taken too much from him. For 7 years, he'd worked the soil of this forgotten moon, growing food for the distant colony stations, speaking to no one but his aging dog and the stars. The knock came during a dust storm. Lewis looked up from his meal, surprised. No one came this far out. He opened the door to find 3 figures huddled against the wind, their forms barely visible through the swirling red particles. They weren't human. "Please," one of them said in accented but clear standard. "We need shelter, just for the night." Lewis stepped aside. They filed in, 3 Vexian females, their iridescent skin shimmering even under the dim lights of his HAB module. Each carried a small child wrapped in thermal blankets. The children's large eyes blinked at Lewis with innocent curiosity, their delicate features a softer version of their mother's. "Thank you," the tallest one said, her cobalt blue complexion catching the light. "I am Orla. These are my sisters Mara and Ven." Lewis nodded, uncomfortable with the sudden intrusion into his carefully constructed solitude. "Storm should pass by morning. You can take the guest quarters." But Orla shook her head. "Our transport broke down 5 kilometers from here. We walked. The children need warmth and food." Something in Lewis softened at the mention of the children. He'd been a father once, in another life. "I'll get the heater going. Sit." As the HAB module warmed, the children began to relax, their mothers peeling away the protective layers. Lewis heated protein stew and watched as the 3 women fed their young with practiced efficiency. They moved with the exhaustion of parents everywhere. Species didn't matter when it came to that particular weariness. "Why are you out here alone?" Mara asked, her voice gentle. Her skin was more purple than blue, with patterns that swirled like galaxies across her arms. "Could ask you the same thing," Lewis replied, avoiding the question. Ven, the quietest one with silver undertones, spoke up. "We're refugees. When the Dominion took our world, we escaped with whatever we could carry. That included our children, but not." She trailed off. "Not their fathers," Orla finished. "They stayed to fight. They didn't survive." Lewis felt the familiar ache in his chest. "I'm sorry. And you?" Orla met his eyes. "You carry loss too. I can see it." For 7 years Lewis had spoken of it to no one, but perhaps it was the storm, or the strangeness of the moment, or the fact that these weren't humans who would judge him. "I had a family. Wife, daughter. Pirates raided our colony ship. I was off-world on business by the time I got back." He couldn't finish. The HAB fell silent except for the wind howling outside. Orla's youngest, a girl with eyes like purple nebulas, toddled over to Lewis. She stared up at him, then offered her toy, a worn stuffed creature that might have been a Vexian animal. "Kayla likes you," Orla said softly. "She doesn't share her Tova with anyone." Lewis took the toy carefully, feeling something crack inside his chest. He handed it back gently. "You should keep it safe." The night stretched on. Lewis found extra blankets, adjusted the environmental controls for Vexian physiology, and even dug out old storybooks from a sealed container he hadn't opened in years. Mara's son, a boy of about 6, listened with rapt attention as Lewis read in halting standard, translating the human fairy tales. "Why do humans always make the heroes fight alone?" the boy asked. Lewis paused. "I guess we think it makes them stronger." "That's foolish," the boy said matter-of-factly. "Everyone needs help." From the mouths of children, Lewis thought. By midnight, the children were asleep in the guest quarters. The 3 women sat with Lewis in the main room, drinking the terrible coffee he'd grown accustomed to. "You've been kind," Orla said. "Most humans we've encountered since the war have been less welcoming. Your mother's doing your best. Species doesn't change that." "No," Ven agreed, "but many wouldn't see it that way." Lewis stood and walked to the window. The storm was clearing, revealing stars that spanned the entire visible spectrum. "Where will you go?" "There's a Vexian settlement 3 systems over. Mara explained. Small, but they'll take us in. We just need to get our transport repaired. I'll look at it in the morning, Lewis heard himself say. I'm decent with engines. Orla smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from any of them. You don't have to. I know. As dawn broke over the red moon, Lewis was already outside, tools in hand. The transport was in worse shape than he'd expected, but nothing he couldn't fix. It took most of the day with Orla assisting and asking intelligent questions about human engineering. You could come with us, she said as Lewis finished the final repairs. The settlement could use someone with your skills. And the children. They've talked about nothing but the nice human all morning. Lewis shook his head. This is my home. Home, Orla repeated, looking at the barren landscape. Or a prison? He didn't answer. The transport hummed to life. The children waved enthusiastically as their mothers loaded supplies Lewis had insisted they take. Kayla pressed her Tova into his hands one more time. For remembering, she said in broken standard. As they lifted off, Lewis stood alone once more, the toy clutched in his weathered hands. The farm stretched out around him, silent and empty. But for the first time in 7 years, it felt less like isolation and more like possibility. He looked down at the Tova, then up at the ship disappearing into the amber sky. Maybe tomorrow he'd send a message to the Vexian settlement, just to check if they arrived safely. Maybe. The stars, at least, didn't seem quite so cold anymore.